Gone even longer than that, Edge of Night left the air in 1984. You'll recall we celebrated 50 years back in April, 50 years since the premiere of the show on April 2nd of that year. I talked with Sharon Gabet. You'll remember her as Raven from the show. She had lots of interesting things to say. Let's begin this walk down memory lane and sort of a best of on the Snarkcast. Sharon Gabet.
50 years of the Edge of Night. We're celebrating it here at the Wost website, and joining me today is Raven Alexander Jameson Swift Whitney. Everybody knows her. They also know her as Melinda Kramer on One Life to Live, Brittany Peterson on Another World. It is Sharon Gabet. Hello, Sharon.
Hello, Brian. Nice to meet you and talk to you today.
Well, I'm glad you were able to take some time out to talk to us. We'll talk about the Edge of Night here pretty soon. But I want to talk about your book first. Since you've been in daytime, you've done a lot of different things, and your life has changed dramatically, from the Raven to the Dove. Tell me a little bit about your book.
Oh, boy. I don't know if I can do it in a little bit.
As much as you want to do it.
I've always been a creative person and always looking for some sort of creative outlet. And writing became to be one after... Well, actually, I've always written. And so I got inundated with 3 children, and my life did take a rather dramatic change after the birth of my 3rd child, who is diagnosed with autism. And there came a point a few years ago where I just felt the need to sort of write down my journey. And I had also done made quite a few changes in my life. So I just started writing. It took me a couple of years kind of to get everything down, and the book was a product of that. And it was more what happened after I left the soaps.
I noticed it was very well received. A lot of people congratulated you. They were very appreciative of your work.
Well, thank you. That's always nice to hear. And I've been writing a lot lately. Since then, I'm working on a sort of science fiction novel, love story novel, and a book of poetry as well, and also a play, which I'm almost finished with. And Frances Fisher, who was on The Edge of Night, and Terry Davis, who was on The Edge of Night, we have remained close as friends. Let's see, that was April Scott and Detective
Deborah Saxon.
And we've remained best of friends all these years. Those 2 live in L.A. And so Frances, I've been showing her snippets of this play, and she's talking about getting it produced and maybe playing the leading part in it as well.
Wow, so you have been very busy.
I have been.
So how is your daughter doing? We were introduced to her, were we not, in the final episode? Was she the baby you were holding?
No, that was my first child, Jasmine.
Oh, okay.
Jasmine is now going to graduate from Santa Cruz College.
Wow.
In June. Unbelievable. And she's just fantastic. Then I had a son, James Maxwell, and he's a freshman in UCLA, majoring in music at the moment. And then Johanna, my autistic child, she was my 3rd child. She was born in 1990. And that was right after I left One Life to Live. She's doing very well. She's going to be 16 this summer. She's high-functioning autistic, very independent. Her biggest issue is she doesn't speak very much. She's not totally nonverbal, but really doesn't take to language. She has a vocabulary of maybe 1,000 words or so, and she can use words to get her needs met. She uses sign language sometimes, but that's the biggest issue is communication, because she doesn't speak.
So as you've coped with a child with autism now, what would you like people to know about autism and children with autism?
It's an interesting kind of syndrome. They call it a syndrome because just about every child you meet with autism is going to be different,
Mm-hmm.
with different signs and symptoms and different problems, different issues. It's very, very interesting. And the biggest thing is nobody knows what causes it. And when Johanna was born, it was just starting to be known. There wasn't that much out there on it. Now they know early intervention is important, and they can get kids into regular schools and doing very well if they start early. But back then they just didn't quite know what to do with these kids. So it's been quite a journey for me. And I think the biggest thing about Johanna is she is a very unique personality. She's very bright. It has nothing to do with intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain autistic children that also have Down syndrome, but she's not. She's just very bright, very intelligent. She understands everything that's going on. Her brain just doesn't work in the same way, and that's what's interesting about her. And in my opinion, I don't know about all the kids, but I think Johanna has some very, very special gifts that other kids don't have, other grown-ups don't have. Her sensory perception is heightened and very unique, and I find that to be a gift.
And, of course, as you've raised her and you've learned how to cope with this, it's kind of opened up a whole other door in the world for you as far as alternative medicines and things like that.
Well, that has been my journey. Since the late 80s and all the way on through now, I've been on an alternative medicine, metaphysics, depth psychology, Jung, astrology, tarot, you name it. I've studied it. Spiritual journey. Meditation opened up to me. Most of it's in the book, or at least the beginnings of it, where I kind of had my life kind of crashed down around me, and I went back to my spiritual roots. And it's been a wonderful journey. I've traveled all over the world with various groups, and studied a lot of different philosophies and spiritual energies, and it's certainly worked for me. I'm about as happy right now as I have ever been.
Well, that's great. What do you think that people don't understand about astrology, maybe, that you'd like for them to understand?
Astrology, a lot of people just consider it, what's your sun sign?
Mm-hmm.
And to which most people know there's 12, one every month. And astrology is actually an incredibly complex science, which has a lot more to do with sun sign. There's all the planets in our solar system, as well as lunar nodes and moon, and it's extremely complex. And the sun sign doesn't even describe the personality. There's other things, the rising sign, the moon, where all the other planets are, and all the relationships they make to each other. So I've been quite amazed with what I can find out about people, about myself, through studying someone's chart. And I think the biggest thing about it, like I said, is it's a very complex science that takes years and years and years to understand. And it's not quite as simplistic as everybody thinks. And it's not about knowing the future either. It's more about studying potentials. I've also done a great deal of study on quantum physics and string theory, and it's interesting to me now how all that is tying in with astronomy, astrology, metaphysics, what all the New Age spiritual books and people that have been talking about. Quantum physics is backing all that up with, the science. So, for example, the concept that there are multiple dimensions and multiple realities going on at the same time. And that's something metaphysics has always talked about, multiple dimensions. And now quantum physics is saying, oh yeah, yes there are parallel realities and multiple dimensions to which we all might be conscious in different dimensions now and not even know that we are. So that's really fascinating and interesting to me as well.
Wow. Well, you have been on a journey indeed. Wow.
Raven, of all things, it's not just about money.
Well, let's go back and let's talk a little bit about Raven. By the way, people that are interested, whiterosecommunications.com, you're going to learn a lot more about Sharon there, and of course, what we've been talking about here. It's fairly in depth. I mean, there's not a lot of information there. They got to buy the book. They got to get the book. That's the thing. You're not going to give it all the way on the website, but it is very interesting, and you even get to see some recent pictures anyway of Sharon.
That's right.
Yeah, because you still have fans, Sharon. They still remember you fondly.
Well, I wish we could get the Edge of Night on SoapNet.
Oh yes,
that would just be so awesome.
Well, we need you, Francis, and Terry.
Yeah.
We need you to help petition with SoapNet to get it on, because there's a lot of fans, and of course, at the Wost website, we are just dying to see more. We get to see a little bit, but we don't get to see it in context, really, in consecutive episodes, which is disappointing for a lot of people.
I heard that Procter & Gamble was negotiating with ABC for that for years now. 2-3 years they've been negotiating, and I guess I think Search for Tomorrow is on. I think there's a couple other shows from Procter & Gamble on, so I don't quite know what the holdup is and why they're holding back.
That's a good question.
But I do think The Edge of Night would be a cult classic, and there was no soap like that. The whole mystery and whodunit kind of genre, nobody else did that.
What are your memories of the first days that you were there? It was 1977, I believe, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and you took over for another actress.
Juanine Clay, who unfortunately is no longer with us. She passed away a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know her very well?
I can't say I know her really well, but we did. She moved to L.A. and we ran in the same circles. And Joe Lambie, who played Logan Swift, married her.
Really? I did not know that.
I think they eventually divorced, but they were married for a while, and he met her while on the show. And she knew Terry and Francis, so every now and then I'd run across her.
Is the world big enough for two Ravens? That was the question.
We got along great. She, like me after I left the soaps, went on to a different life, and yes, the world's plenty big. Not two Ravens on that soap, though, that's for sure. They wouldn't have stood for each other. Can you imagine?
What did you think of Raven when you first... How did you get the role? Did you have to read for the part, or...?
Let's see, I had been in New York about a year. I came from Cornell. I graduated from Cornell University with a Master's of Fine Arts in Acting. Came to New York with stars in my eyes, and spent a year... I'm a registered nurse as well, so I did some nursing while I was there, but auditioned. I did a play and got an agent from the play, and then I was up for 2 other soap parts. The Edge of Night was my third. I can't remember what the other 2 were. That would have been interesting to remember. Edge of Night was my third, and I remember reading that it was for a character who was spoiled and rich, but filled with life, and spunky, and sort of a Scarlett. They didn't say Scarlett O'Hara, but it reminded me of that kind of character. And so I was very excited. I thought, this sounds right. And I went in and met Nick Nicholson. And I specifically remember the camera operators and the techies. And they were very nice to me. I think there were 3 of us doing auditions. And I do remember after I finished mine, and I was the third one, that the camera operator looked at me and said, "You got it."
Oh, wow.
And I learned to trust the camera operators. They knew. So, indeed, I did get it. She, when I first walked into that part, was a spoiled brat for sure, but Juanine didn't quite play her as evil as I did. Juanine was more spoiled brat, but I remember over the first year I began to make her a little bit more manipulative and mean and nasty. I think Juanine's version was a little bit more fun-loving and just kind of silly spoiled.
Your Raven was very mean. Some terrible things.
I immediately thought, let's get down to the nitty-gritty here and really get a villain going.
Uh-huh.
And that was the great thing about Henry Slessor, was he was so open. And whatever I did with the script, he would watch the show every day, and he would begin to write for me, for what I would give him.
Mm-hmm.
And they liked that. Nick Nicholson loved it, too, when I just really got evil with her. So we went in that direction for a while, and that was fun. But when you play a character for 7 years, like I did Raven, you want to make changes and have her develop. And so I think she started out not so evil. She got very evil. But then I think once she met Skylar, she kind of reverted into more a heroine-type character. I mean, yes, she was still spoiled and extraordinarily selfish and greedy,
mm-hmm.
but she became noble in ways because she was in love.
You know, over the years, there's been stories that have come out, and they've said that you did not like the direction that Raven ultimately ended up being in towards the end of the series there, and perhaps it had more to do with how the show was written. Is there any truth to that?
It was difficult letting go of Henry Slessor. He and
for the fans as well.
We had a great relationship, and I loved him dearly. And I feel that the choice was made to bring a new writer on because The Edge of Night's ratings were slipping. And I think part of the pressure was political because ABC, The Edge of Night was on ABC, but it was a Procter & Gamble soap, and I think ABC wanted that time slot, and that was a problem. And I know that at the time, Procter & Gamble was looking into building their own studio in New York City, and as a matter of fact, put down quite a bit of money to begin development on the Upper East Side to build their own studios so they could have all their own soaps in their own studio, because I think there had been issues with the networks, and it didn't work out. And I heard I heard some gossip about it, and one of them was because they'd laid down millions of dollars on this place that they bought, and they were building, but I heard that somebody didn't pay off the right mafia people, and the mafia people were running, and still are, I believe, the construction industry in New York.
Wow.
And so they kept running into snafus and snags, and they never got it done, and they had to abandon the project. That was the gossip I heard. How interesting, huh?
Yeah, I never knew that.
Yeah. But they did start a studio, but never happened. So I think that was one of the reasons the ratings were failing. They wanted to modernize The Edge of Night a little bit more, and thought maybe that might have been the problem. I don't think it was totally the problem, but you know that the powers that be brought on a new writer, and I don't think there's too many people that would say it worked. It didn't work. And that doesn't necessarily reflect the writing ability of the new writer, but The Edge of Night had been on for, over 20 years?
Yeah.
Close to 30 years.
Yes, 28 years was the ultimate run.
And it just didn't shift well.
Well, it wasn't the formula that the show had used.
It wasn't the formula that the show used, so it just was odd, and And if they had brought on all new characters, then that would have been something else. You might as well have started a new soap. But to have people like Lois Kibbe and Anne Flood and Forrest Compton and, these people on, and they had been on since concept practically. Forrest Compton and Anne Flood are always telling us stories about when they were live. Great stories. So it just didn't work. unfortunately, and we went down, which is too bad.
How do you think that, with the correct formula, how do you think a soap like Edge of Night would play today? Would it still be as unique as it was?
Who knows? You know, the thing about any creative project is it's a combination of writer, producer, actors, directors. And The Edge of Night had a unique combination for a long time. Some of the characters that they had who had been on for a long time, Henry, of course, and even Nick Nicholson, the producer, who had been there for a long time. They all helped create the ambiance of what was there. I think if they were to redo it, they would do it. It would just be a very different show.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they were to redo something like that, you need some old time actors who really carry the flavor of what it was like to be live and who have some weight, so to speak. I'm trying to think of anybody that David Lynch tried to do that with his what was that?
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks, just sort of a weird, strange, different kind of thing, and that worked quite well.
Mm-hmm.
It was bizarre. It didn't last, but it was very interesting and unique.
Well, the people that are able to see the episodes that we've got on the website now, as we're celebrating 50 years of Edge of Night, they say, and these are even younger folks who don't remember the original run or when it was rerun on USA Network, that it was so unique, and they're immediately addicted to it, and they say it's better than anything that they're currently seeing.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So there are new fans coming in after all these years, and the show has not been forgotten. It is as you say, it has a very big cult following, almost like a Dark Shadows.
I think it does. That's why I'm just shocked that they don't have it running somewhere again. I have heard, though, that it's been running in foreign countries almost constantly since it went off the air. And someone told me if I ever went to South Africa, everyone would know me because it's been playing there for years.
Wow.
Which is funny, yeah. But it would be fun to see it again. And unfortunately, quite a few of the cast members are gone.
Mm-hmm.
They've passed away. Lois went.
Tell me more about her.
Lois Kibbe, oh my God, what a riot she was. Her family were actors who were on the road. Her parents were actors. She was a child actress. Her grandmother, I believe. And they were on the road. She has hilarious stories because actors were not treated very kindly. They were lower-class citizens. And there were even signs in many hotels that said no actors or Irishmen allowed. Huh. And so she said they ended up staying in some bordellos.
Wow.
Yes. Very interesting woman, fascinating, and what a riot she was to work with.
She was also a writer. She wrote.
She was a writer. She stepped in for a while, and she was one who would write letters. She would come in every day and talk about the letters she wrote to the editor or to this person or that person. She loved to write letters, to get her views and opinions known, and they were always quite hilarious. And I kept in touch with her and Nick. We used to get together and have dinner every now and then. Even after I moved to California, when I'd get back to New York, we'd meet and have dinner. And I did have dinner with both Nick Nicholson and Lois about a year or two before Lois passed away, and then Nick, of course, passed away too. So I treasured that dinner. We hoisted some martinis and had a lot of laughs over the years that we spent together. It was a great time.
Tell me something about your leading men. John Driver played Kevin Jameson when you came on the show.
He was wonderful. Very sweet man, much like the character. Also was a director in the theater and a writer, and he did a lot of theater work. I remember when they came, of course, that was the problem with The Edge of Night, is someone had to die frequently because there was a murder mystery. So, no one, first of all, someone had to die. Second of all, someone had to kill them. So that was two people that were going to get off the show and lose a job. So over the years, it was, it wasn't just a whodunit on the show, it was a whodunit among the actors, because they knew they were going to have to get out and look for a new job. So I do remember when John found out he was going to drive his car off a cliff. I felt bad for him. I was like, well, that's what you get for being a partner with a raven. You know, you don't last that long. Imagine how many men Susan Lucci's driven off a cliff in her. But he was very, very sweet. And then, let's see, Logan Swift was next. Joe Lambie and I had also a great time. Joe was a lot of fun. Very straight, serious, intelligent man who loved classical music. So we gave him a run for his money on that show, because no one took anything serious on the set of The Edge of Night.
You could tell that everyone was really enjoying what they were doing.
We did. We laughed and laughed a lot. And many times, all the actors, Louis Theron and Lois and the older ones, we'd all be sitting around and saying things like, we can't believe we're doing this for a living. It's like being paid to play. We got to play.
Well, until you got killed.
Yes, until you got killed. Then it got very serious. Then off you went into the hard, cold, cruel world. And then, let's see, I think Schuyler Whitney might have been my third marriage.
Larkin Malloy, yeah.
Yes. Now, he and I had something special. There was no doubt about it. We were absolutely crazy about each other off and on the screen. I adored Larkin. Fabulous actor. We had incredible chemistry and lots of fun. There were a number of opportunities in between boyfriends and girlfriends that we might have gotten together, but we always were afraid we were going to mess up our energy, you know, in the characters if we did that, and so we remained really close friends. And then the other one that came in, Raven never really had. Well, there was the chief, the chief of police,
Derek Mallory.
Dennis.
Dennis Parker.
Dennis Parker.
Mm-hmm.
He was also just so much fun. Had quite a risque background. I don't know if that's out.
Yeah, I think everybody knows. The secret's been let out of the bag some years
Yes,
ago.
Dennis Parker did quite a few porno films in his career. And
did you folks know about that? Did you know about that?
He told us, oh yeah, yep. And we teased him quite a bit and had a lot of laughs at his expense over that. He was great. Who's the one that played the next detective that came along that went to Switzerland with us?
Christopher Jarrett.
Damien
Tyler.
Now Christopher Jarrett I kept in contact with more than anyone.
Mm-hmm.
We used to... He's an incredible artist who lives in the Hamptons now.
Really?
Incredible artist. He went to Europe and studied several techniques, and he had always been a sculptor and artist. And now he's got his own studio there, and that's all he does in the Hamptons. I'm not sure exactly where, but he and I would maybe once every couple of years we'd get a phone call from each other. I'd call him or he'd call me, and just talk about what the other one was up to. I actually haven't heard from him for a couple of years now. I know he had a separation from his wife, and that was getting him down. We talked quite a bit during that time. But he was a lot of fun as well on the set, even though we never really got to have a romance.
There was a flirtation there.
It was a strong flirtation. I absolutely adored him, a very gentle soul and sweet, sweet man. And I considered myself the luckiest woman in the world when I got to go to Switzerland with just those two guys, Larkin and Christopher. What fun! One on each arm. We had a ball.
Well, that's interesting. We're currently at the website. We're able to see some episodes from that period of time. It looked like it was a lot of fun for you guys.
It was. And
what do you remember best about that location shoot? I mean, it didn't seem like Edge of Night in the later years did a whole lot of location shooting, but
we did too. In the time I was on, one there and one in Mexico.
I remember the Mexico.
But the one in Switzerland was like a fairy tale dream. First of all, it was the culmination of, I think, one of the best storylines The Edge of Night ever had.
Jefferson Brown.
Jefferson Brown. That was a fabulous storyline, and I think our ratings soared the highest they've ever been, which shows you good writing and a good storyline will do it. It was just a great, great story. Unfortunately, Jeff Brown had to die. But so we went to Switzerland to sort of cumulate that story, and the most incredible thing about it was normally when you're on a shoot, they schedule things very heavy, and it's a joke. You barely have time to go out and do anything. You're shooting all the time, especially because there were only 3 actors and one major storyline. So it wasn't even that, oh, well, you'll have a day off today because we're going to be shooting someone else's story. We were in every single scene. But John Sedgwick was the director, and he had set everything up so beautifully that we would get most of our shooting done within a few hours in the morning, and we had all day to go and play in San Moritz. And also just the things we shot. A helicopter ride. Oh, unbelievable. There we were going up and down in the helicopter, flying over the Alps and one of the most beautiful valleys on the planet. And that was just absolutely thrilling. Then there was a sleigh ride, a romantic sleigh ride. That was difficult work, with Larkin in there bundled up with furs. Sleigh riding around San Moritz, hello. You know. And both Christopher and Larkin and I got to downhill ski. We cross-country skied over the most beautiful landscape. We ice skated. Larkin had never ice skated before, so of course I pushed him down a lot and had many laughs, because I've been ice skating since I was a little girl, the lakes of Indiana. So just so many incredible opportunities to play and work on that incredible storyline as well. It was a trip I'll never forget as long as I live. I still think it was one of the most...
Sounds like the years that you were on The Edge of Night were some of the, maybe your finest years that you've enjoyed working.
I did. Yeah. Another World didn't work out so well for me.
You were only on that about a year?
I was on that almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years?
It was difficult adjusting to the hour. It was difficult. It was almost like losing your family and then being adopted into another family, but never feeling like you quite fit.
Yeah.
The storylines just didn't quite work for me. The character was just such a different, almost 180-degree difference from Raven, being a rodeo cowgirl. Very, and I did my best, right, and I also couldn't speak or talk in the sign language. I mean, it was good. It was challenging for me as an actress, and it was fun to do something like that, challenging, but just never quite happened. Plus the fact that I had just gotten married, had my daughter, and I was commuting to Brooklyn, so that my days were 15-hour days. So it was just very difficult to be away from my daughter that long and working almost every day. So I had a nanny, but I just didn't get to see her that much, and so that was hard. One Life to Live was, and the interesting thing was when I left The Edge of Night, I was offered a part on One Life to Live.
Really? What was the part?
As well, it was going to be something, I think she was called the Countess, and I would have worked with Beau. And I would have loved that. But I felt loyal to Procter & Gamble because I had been with them so long. And I think maybe it was probably the biggest mistake of my career.
Really? Not
going with One Life to Live at that point and going with Another World. So then I went back to One Life to Live, and I think Melinda had the opportunity to be a really good character. I think that they were also in transition with their producer, who I know left within a year or two after I did. And How can you not know what to do with me? Come on, I can do anything.
Well, it seems to me that they could have made good use of Melinda, Dorian's sister.
Yes!
My goodness.
Dorian and I would have had, oh my God, Robin Strasser and Sharon Gabet together. We would have had so much fun. And I know she wasn't on the show then, but she came by a number of times. And then she returned as Dorian a number of times. After that, they should have gotten her on. We would have had a ball. But, it just didn't work out then. And let me think what else was going on then. I was just going to say. Oh, yes. In 1997, I got a call from ABC, and they wanted to know if I wanted to go back and do Melinda again.
Really?
I would have loved to. They brought her back because they were bringing back her daughter. Well, you reach a certain age in soap operas, and you're going to go from being the villainess to being the villainess's mother, but that's okay. I was ready to make that transition, but unfortunately, I had already purchased tickets and had plans for going to Egypt at the time. It was my second trip to Egypt. I love Egypt. I've been there 3 times now.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already laid down quite a bit of money to go on the trip, and I was leaving just about that time. So, I said, can't you delay the story for a few months? And they couldn't. So they ended up hiring somebody else, which is too bad. I would have loved to have gone back and done that again.
We would have loved to have seen you in the role
That
again.
would have been fun.
Wow.
I did check into, over the time I've been in California, it's been over 10 years now. I think maybe even 12 this year. 12 or 13 years I've been here now. I checked into the soap opera scene in L.A. It's not the same as New York. And New York actors and actresses are different than L.A. actors and actresses. It's just a very, very, it's like going to London and breaking into the circuit there. It's just not run the same.
You can't imagine yourself on a General Hospital or Days of Our Lives.
Like I said, I checked into it. I sent resumes and notices to a couple of the shows. I did actually contact General Hospital and talked with them a little bit, but nothing ever came up, and so I let it go. And now it's too late now. I just can't imagine myself on a soap again. Although both of my children seem to be entering into the entertainment field. And
so we might be seeing them one day, huh?
You might be seeing them, and if they ever got into a position of power, I would love to come on and do a cameo in any of their projects, and they know that. So I don't think you've seen the last of me yet. Plus, if this play works out, and Frances would play the part that I wrote for myself for a while, but she does lots of projects, so I would then probably step in after her, so that would be fun.
Well, we would all love to see you on something.
That would be fun.
Well, if the Procter & Gamble, ABC, CBS, listen, we want to see Sharon. They're listening. We want you to know that there's a big fan following for her. Just come to the Wost website. You'll find out.
Well, I've kept myself up. I run. I'm physically fit. I look marvelous, and it would be fun to step into something again. Once an actress, always an actress. And my kids, even Johanna's 16 now. She's very independent, and I think she'll need care the rest of her life. But we've walked through the rainstorms and the darkness, and everybody's happy. Oh, and I've found a new man in my life. I'll probably be getting married within the next year.
Breaking news.
Yes, it is. His name is Tom Atwell. He lives in Boulder at the moment, and he's in London on business right now. But it looks like he works for Lockheed Martin as an engineering manager, and he's already put in for a job transfer to California. And it looks pretty good. So I suspect he'll be here sometime this summer. And this is my dream man. He's very spiritually oriented, and we have the same interests. He's just amazing. I'm so in love, I can't stand it.
Well, we're very happy for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So a whole new life is beginning for me now.
Well, from the raven to the dove.
From the raven to the dove.
All righty. I want to thank you very much. That was Sharon Gabet here with us, celebrating 50 years of The Edge of Night here at the Wost website.